Hi students, it's Mrs. T, and I'm going to, in this video, give you your actual first lesson of the meat of our geography class. So far, you should have watched, I think it's at least 3 little videos with me that go over syllabus and orientation to the class and things like that. But this one is the first that we're actually going to have the meat of our content area, our subject, cultural geography. This is the lesson where it's vital that you sit down with a notebook and take notes and pause me and rewind or whatever the word is in a digital video and review things so you can fill in the gaps. I have posted a Word document online that you can see behind me. I'm going to move myself in just a second so you can see it more clearly, and we'll go over these major topics. I'm going to post this kind of notes page, rough notes page online for you to use. You can download it now if you would like and make spaces to type more if you would rather type your notes. However you want to do it, it's up to you. But this is our first official lesson, and we will have quiz questions come straight from this lesson and maybe one more before we actually have our second quiz. Our first quiz was about the syllabus and orientation to the class in week 1. If you haven't already done that, shame on you. Do it now. You need to do that. It's one of our quizzes, and the content or the questions from quiz 2, like I said, will come from this and also the section in our textbook that corresponds to these topics, which is on page 4. It starts on page 4 of the 11th edition of our textbook. What is Geography is the general title of that section. Excuse me. So let me move myself out of the way and get busy talking about this stuff. Okay, let me slow down a little bit. I think my coffee is making me a little excited, although I am a dork for this topic, so that makes me a little excited too. So, geography, it's maybe a word that you've heard a whole bunch, you've heard it often, but maybe didn't ever know what it really meant. Literally, the Greek origins of it mean to draw the earth. In modern times, when we say geography, we're talking about how social scientists and also natural scientists, like there's an overlap between social science and natural science in geography. We talk about geography meaning the study of the earth in its physical and natural environment, natural processes, and also how human relationships and human populations and human cultural patterns interact with those environmental and physical components to make culture, make sense of life, and move forward throughout time, endure over time. So the modern definition of geography is huge. I don't know if you thought of it as huge when I was saying it just now, but it is a combination of social science, looking at the way people and cultures interact and use space over time and interact with environmental conditions, etc. So those environmental conditions, meteorology, climatology, plate tectonics, all of the physical components of an environment play into the way humans live out their lives, right? So geography, modern geography, is how do human populations react to the physical environment. It's a great combination between physical sciences and cultural sciences. Well, my cat is gonna come over here and sit on my lap while I'm doing this. So if you hear meowing, it's not my stomach talking to you. Anyway, so geography is huge, like we have talked about. It is an academic discipline that we have to break down into 2 different parts because it is so huge. And so let me actually show you this graphic that I have from a website to show you how big this field is. So you see geography in general with all these little overlapping circles and all these different topics within it. So geography is a field that we call holistic. Although, if you've had me in anthropology class, like I know many of you have, you've heard me call anthropology a holistic discipline also. In my opinion, anthropology is more holistic, if there's degrees of holism, than geography is. because geography tends to have a little bit of a bias. That word bias is not a bad thing. Here's my kitty cat. His name is Pudgy. He's purring very loudly. Anyway, geography is a little bit biased toward industrialism, urbanization, farming, agriculture, those kinds of things that you don't need to know the definition of right now. I'm rattling them off because we will cover them over the course of the semester. You see that geography has this word sociology here. Sociology, of course, is a socio, meaning society, cultural, meaning human behavior and traditions and beliefs. It's a socio-cultural study of humans in a society. And typically that means a large-scale, industrialized, urbanized society. Whereas anthropology really takes into account all sorts of subsistence strategies within the world. And there's another word, subsistence strategy, that I will clarify for you in a future lesson. You don't need to focus on that one right now or looking up that word right now. Geography focuses more on the modern globalism, globalized communication and trade patterns, economics of modern societies, meaning industrialized, and using industrialism for their subsistence strategy. So geography is a huge field, and you can see that there are some hard sciences or natural sciences, however you want to distinguish things like biology and chemistry from things like psychology and sociology. These words are, or these fields are all a part of geography. So let me switch back to our notes here and talk about how we break down geography into two subparts. It's kind of like different parts of this circle here. We kind of cut it down the middle to classify things from one place to the next. Okay, so geography is broken down, like I said, into two parts. One of them is physical geography. So the hard science or natural science component of geography would encompass things in the natural environment, surface and subsurface features, as you can see that I've written here, and spatial components of the environment. So, for instance, a surface feature, well, let me just go in order of how I've already typed it here on the sheet instead of jumping to the surface features. Okay, first let's talk about spatial. That word comes from the word space. Okay, and so we talk about in the physical environment what kinds of resources are available in a certain area. Are there oil resources? Are there water resources, land resources, those kinds of things. Space covers issues like size, distance, height, depth, motion. How do things move downriver, for instance, or upriver, for instance, through the atmosphere with the currents and the tides, things like that. So there is a spatial component to our physical environment. There's a distribution of grasslands or forested lands or rocky places or desert climates on the earth. And these kinds of spatial features and surface features and subsurface features of the earth dictate to a certain extent the ways in which human beings are going to interact with their environment and develop culture. So there's a class that we offer here at UAPTC called Physical Geography, and it is, if you were going to major in cultural or physical geography, you would typically take the physical geography class, which is a freshman level, at the same time as you take this cultural geography class that we're taking together, which is at the sophomore level, because it's really important that you understand the difference between a desert and someplace where the land is what we call arable, There's a word from your textbook that you can look up the definition for. Arable land is an important feature that we talk about with geography, because we can find population centers generated around those areas where we have arable or farmable fertile land where we can grow crops or we can graze cattle or something to sustain the food needs of a population. Those kinds of things are important in understanding why and how human populations exist in a certain place. And that, the way I ended that sentence just now, is a great segue into the cultural geography part. The name of our class, right? Cultural geography. Cultural geography focuses on a primary question, one primary question, the why of where. And so really all of these questions that I have focused on here, oops, I've got a misspelling right there. Let me fix that right now. All of these questions that I listed here, I just rattled off the top of my head for the kinds of things that we can ask and find answers for in cultural or human geography, our class that we have together. So the why of where is the primary overarching concept that goes with all of the learning outcomes that you saw on the syllabus for our class. Why is it that populations or movement or political features or religious ideologies or foodways or any of these other questions, and this is not a comprehensive list of questions, you'll see in your reading in your textbook a variety of other questions that your textbook author poses that could be listed here in this long list. But these are the kinds of research that cultural geographers do. When we do our field work, we try to ask questions such as medical geography. How and why do certain diseases spread more in certain places than in others? In cultural geography, is it possible that human features of the environment, for instance, buildings, these surface or subsurface features here, notice, let's scroll back up, notice that we said man-made features here. So for instance, a dam on a river or an electrical processing plant, using coal or using water or any of those sorts of natural resources to harness or to produce electricity. How can these kinds of things affect whether a disease is transmitted or contained in a certain physical environment? So these are the kinds of fun questions. This is a fun kind of way to rethink about the why questions that we have for the way things happen. In this cultural geography class, we're going to be talking about beliefs and habits and traditions and history, and we won't really be concerned with when something occurred. We're more concerned with where and why it occurred where. In history, we can study historical events in geography class, but I'm not going to ask you to memorize dates. Instead, I'm going to ask you to look at things a little differently and ask, why did this event happen here? Why was there a population of people there? Who composed the population of people? What was their culture? Where did their culture derive from? And how did the political or the religious or the economic or whatever kind of aspect of human interaction, how and why did that take place at that location? So we are much more concerned with the why of where, and historians are much more concerned with timelines and periods of history and what came after this. We're interested in what came after something based on the physical environment and the human culture that came through the physical environment to bring about a chain of events, for instance. So regardless of what your field is, geography is for you. I'll be back with another short lesson very soon to feed that notebook of yours. Make sure you take a lot of notes and text me with questions. Bye.